Morning, losers. I wanted to talk about being a loser. And words, and the power of words. And I know that, we're wizards. We know that words have power. We're aware of that now. You've probably heard that's why they call it a spell. Because words have power. Which is true, they absolutely do. Like, that's what gets fed into our brains. One of the things. And then we ruminate, and then we turn it into stories. Words, they can activate us. They can activate any number of things within us. They can activate sadness or happiness. They can activate action, anger. Oh, there's lots of things words can activate. Spiritual transformation. But I also have learned that words only have the power that you give them. If you believe that a certain word has power, it does. What you believe is true in your experience. And it's not about facts. It's not about the objective reality. But, nobody knows what that is. Nobody knows what that looks like, really. But in your world, if you believe the word weird, for example, is a bad word, and you don't want people putting that word on you, then when somebody calls you weird, you become upset and offended. Not you. I'm not calling you out. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about those other people who don't understand that being weird is a blessing. My hair looks nice today. It's because it's humid. The humidity, you guys. The humidity. But you can see where... I think you can see what I'm talking about. I've gone around my whole life. I've called myself weird. Weird has never been a bad word in my existence. My mom was weird. My dad's weird. I don't know. We're all weird. Everybody's weird. Who's not weird? Have you ever met anybody really actually normal and thought, yep, this person doesn't have anything weird going on the inside? They're just pure normal. Yeah. Well, anyway, sometimes I find that when people haven't accepted the fact that they are weird, if you try and say if you try and call yourself weird, they'll be like, oh, no, you're not weird. I'm like, have you seen me? And it's because they have this idea that weird is a bad thing. Weird is not cool. Like, if I say I'm weird, it means that I'm saying something bad about myself. But that's not it. I'm saying that I'm not like all these normies, I'm allowing myself to express my individuality. And yeah, that's weird. And if we all would do that, the world would be a weird place. But what I'm talking about is the power of words. And so for me, the word weird doesn't hurt me, It doesn't put something negative inside of me that makes me feel bad. It doesn't awaken these negative stories in myself. But for some people it does. It awakens a negative story. They're like, oh, well, weird equals bad. And you've seen the way that some communities have chosen to reclaim certain words. One I can use as a very personal example is queer, because I think that those of us in the community have had that word used against us, or have heard, maybe if you haven't personally had the word queer used against you, a lot of people used to. I had a great aunt who I know used the word queer in a derogatory manner, and yet we have reclaimed it. It's one of the letters. It's one of the many letters in our LGBTQ LMNOP thing. I don't know. I still say we need a team name. We need to come up with like I don't know, the Lightning Broncos or something. Oh, dang it, that's a real team. I'm not like I've said before, I'm not a sports gay. I don't know about sports, but I think if we had a team name, that would be fun. Anywho, long story short, I'm getting around to the word loser, and I think we need to reclaim that shit, you guys. I think we should reclaim loser, because there's a power in that word. There's a surrender and there's a power. So what happened to me is I did that video, you may remember. Maybe I kind of know how to YouTube. Maybe I can put it right there. This video. We'll see. If it didn't work, I'm just sitting here with my finger up like a doofus. So hopefully I got that video to pop up right there. But anyway, so the word loser, I called myself a loser, and what happened is I decided, like, okay, well, I've been trying to make my life fit this mold, and it won't. I don't want to. That's the bottom line, is I don't want it to. I don't want it to fit. I don't want to fit in this mold because I don't like it. It's uncomfortable. I don't like the way that I see people I care about being so just overrun by everything that we can't live up to, and thinking that that's a personal problem, and that's what happens. But what happened when I did that video and I said, well, this is it, I guess I'm just a loser, I can't make it in this world, and I got all these views, and everybody said, me too, I really relate. And I thought, oh shit, I'm not alone in this. And so I don't know, maybe that kind of inspired me, like, wait, there's all these other losers who are like, ugh, I wish I could just not feel like this anymore. But it's like, if you pretend that you don't have cancer, you can't do much about it. If you pretend you don't have a broken leg, oh, it's fine, I'll just walk it out. Well, that's not gonna work. You can't pretend that you don't have a problem. So if you really have a problem, you have to look at it. You have to say, oh, that's my problem. And so when I said, oh, I feel like a big old loser, that was my problem. But I couldn't have gotten to the place where I went beyond the problem without identifying the problem, and without really leaning into the problem and surrendering to the problem and saying, well, this is what I'm dealing with. And what does that really mean? What does it look like? What am I, and then expressing it. And now let me tell you, I don't feel like a loser anymore. Like, I feel like a rebel. And maybe that's silly. I don't know. Maybe it's like, all right, you just cried on YouTube, Hannah, get a grip. But no, like inside, I have shifted my narrative. My inner narrative has moved from this place of like victimization to this place of, well, wait a second, I have power here. And so what happened is I said, oh, I have no power. And I surrendered to the fact that I have no power. I can't do it. I just can't. And so you surrender. And you cry. And then from that place, that surrender place where you're down, you're like, well, none of this is ever going to work. I give up. And suddenly you're like, oh, well, if I have nothing to lose, then I can just be myself. I can just be a loser. If I have nothing to lose, because I'm such a loser that I've lost it all. What a sense of freedom. All right, so coming back around, so words and their power, and this word loser. and how embracing this aspect of myself, instead of saying, we're not going to talk about that, we're not going to deal with it, I embraced it and I said, yeah, that's who I am. And it has transmuted itself into this new space of like, well, are my material conditions any different? Not really. You know, have I done anything? Have I made $1 million? No, none of that. My material conditions remain more or less the same. But the difference is that now that I have decided that I am no longer fitting into the box, I've said, oh, well, you know, I tried to fit in this box for so long. And if it's just not gonna work, then I'm not gonna try anymore. I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna do what I really deeply want. I'm gonna express who I deeply am. And that has opened up all of these very interesting pathways of possibility in my mind, in my creative mind, and all these different ways that that I can make changes in my life personally. Like it awakened this realization that, like, well, if I can't do it, nobody can. If I can't create my life, nobody else can either. Like, nobody else is going to do it for me. And so, like, I really recognize that actually I have been creating I do have power. I have all the power. I'm the only one with the power. But I knew that. I've always known that I'm the one with the power. And that had always felt like such a burden. It had always felt like I can't live up to this power. Like, what do you mean I can change this? No, I can't. Like, and so that's what I'm saying, is that, like, a lot of people came to me and they said, oh, well, and I'm not saying that was wrong either. You know, that was all part of my process, of course. But what I am saying is that, like, this process is necessary. The process of saying, wait a second, this is how I really feel. I really genuinely feel like a loser. And you open yourself up to that. And all I'm saying is that if you are able to remove yourself in a way from the stories that the word loser sort of creates, and instead you're able to look at it as sort of this framework, this filter that we are using to go through the world, that shows us how powerless we really are. But then as we go through this powerlessness and we go through these experiences of powerlessness, it actually shows us exactly where our power is. And so I still love the word loser. Like, I feel really good about the word loser, because to me now I have transmuted it into this space of, well, I didn't want to win in this society anyway, because winning in this society means that I have stepped all over other people. I have stepped on people's heads. I have, you know, I've done, and that's in my mind, you know, that's obviously other people are becoming very successful without doing that. I'm not trying to say that. These are stories in my mind, you guys, okay? Don't take me so literally. That's what the whole video is about, is the literalness of words, and that we need to release ourselves really from the tyranny of literalness, the tyranny of, like, taking stuff so literally, because words are very powerful, but they are also our tools. We create them, we make them. We have the power to decide whether or not a word has power over us. And so if you say, yeah, I am a loser, and watch what I'm gonna do with that. it's more empowering than trying to pretend like you're not going through this thing that you're clearly going through. But all the while, you do have to be aware of the stickiness of words, and that if you are one of those people who's prone to taking titles and words of definite, if you're prone to defining yourself by a title, then you're going to get real hung up in words, in definitions of yourself, because you're not a word. You're not even a human. The word human doesn't even, it points to the experience of of being a human. It doesn't say, when you say, oh, I am a human, if you said that to some alien being who had no idea what that meant, it would mean nothing to them. Because it's just a word that points to the truth. And my relationship with defining words has always been sort of as a descriptor, rather than this is who I am. This is maybe describing an aspect of who I am. Like, I like the word queer. I'm queer. I'm a lesbian. That's not all of who I am. I don't let that define how I walk through the world. Like, it is a part of who I am, and it does influence me and my experience, of course, but it doesn't define me. And I don't make decisions because I am this, I have to behave this way. I recognize it as a descriptor. And so I'd like all of us to really open up to the idea that we don't have to hold words quite so literally. And if you open yourself up to playing with words in a non-literal sense, then your synchronicities really open up. Your sense of magic and play, it really opens up. Stuff is not nearly as rigid as we think. And that includes words, and it includes our physical reality too. Because we don't know how much our experiences and how much just being a human, a biological human even, we don't understand really how those things contribute to the filtering of information. And so there's no way that you can go through the world without coloring reality with your own experience, because how the hell else are you going to experience it? So that said, all I'm saying, look at my Lemurian quartz, isn't it neat? So you can use it as an antenna. Take a look at the words, though, that you use to define yourself. If somebody says, well, who are you? And you say, well, I am a teacher, or I am a dad, or whatever. I don't know. Explore to what extent that is really you. Is it you, or is that a role you're playing? And it doesn't mean that it's not important. It doesn't mean that it's not a vital part of who you are. Of course it is. I mean, being queer is like a vital part of my personal identity. But it's not what makes me who I am. There's something else in there. And so all these words, language is great. Language is wonderful. But if you want to be a real wizard, you have to recognize that we have power over language too, because we created it. We're the wizards of the English language, or whatever written language, spoken language you like. We made that, we created it, and so we can make the rules, we can recreate the definitions, and we can decide how to engage with it, and we can decide how literal we take things. And it's meant to be a tool, not a cage. Language is meant to help us communicate, not define who we are. It's to help us say, oh, well, meet me by the big cluster of sunflowers. And if you don't know what sunflowers are, then you're not going to know where to meet. But if we both know what sunflowers are, then we know where to meet. But it doesn't mean that sunflowers are a road map, a road sign, a meeting place. Sunflowers are way more than just the words we use to describe them. There's a whole process over there. There's a whole being in there. I'm looking at sunflowers right now. That's what I'm thinking about them. So yeah, stop defining yourself and start describing yourself. Give yourself a little fluidity, you know? Is that too gay? Don't be scared. Fluidity's all right, you know? You're allowed to take a little, you know, get a little fluid. I dare you. All right, losers, thanks for hanging out with me. I've got some interesting things in the works. Weird art projects, I guess. Let me know if you want to collaborate on anything. I'm in a weird transitional period, an open period of I'm exploratory right now. We're exploring different things. So if you have some kind of crazy collaboration idea, man, I'm open to a lot of different things. I would love to hear from some brave new wizards, because we're gonna, you know, we're still losers, because we're not gonna fit into this box, but we're making a new box, and it's not gonna look like any box they ever seen before. It's gonna be a whole new box. We're reinventing the box. Because boxes are nice. I like boxes. It's good to have containers. But you don't want to be trapped in a container. All the traps we think we're in are in our minds, you know? That's all mind traps. You ever play that game when you were a kid? Good old Sid Shady. You remember that guy? What's going on there? That's a 90s kid conspiracy. Did Eminem play Mind Trap? Riddle me this. All right. That's all I have for us today. Thank you for joining me in the Losers Support Group. Go out there and be weird.